Me and my kids caught my wife kissing her affair partner in public, so I confronted them and then ghosted her. Born with a silver spoon. I do not understand why people cheat. My betrayal happened 25 years ago and completely broke me. I recently read a couple posts from guys whose betrayals happened years ago, too, which has inspired me to write, although advice, support, condemnation are really no longer pertinent. If you had asked me until the day, I would have stated that I had been born with a silver spoon in my mouth. Although I came from a fairly poor family, I had absolutely everything else because of my Katie. We were born in the same month as first children to young parents who lived on the same street, only a couple blocks apart. So my Katie was in my life right from the start, and we became a thing without knowing it. We spent so much time together that it just seemed natural that she was at my place or I was at hers. By the end of elementary school, a favorite activity of the boys and girls was to meet up somewhere before we went in for the night and steal a few kisses. It was never stated, but I didn't kiss the other girls. She only kissed me. Our transition to high school began horribly for me. I have to add, at this point, that Katie was stunning, like upper first percentile gorgeous. I never saw her equal. All the boys noticed her. The unwritten rules of elementary school did not apply here, and soon all the boys in the school vied for her attention. They staked out her locker, jostled with one another to see her between classes and at lunch. We were always intercepted on the way to school by boys in cars. I was devastated. How could a grade 9 boy have any chance against bigger, stronger, richer boys who had cars and money? My love of school vanished. I became a morose, didn't study, didn't walk her to school. In fact, I told my mom that I wanted to quit. Katie's mom saved the day by phoning my mom to ask if I was okay. I hadn't been over for a long time, and Katie was worried about what was going on. She invited me over next evening, and I and Katie sat down and talked. When I explained to myself, Katie assured me that as far as she was concerned, I was, am, and always will be her boyfriend. My love of life returned. The unwanted attention of men, though, never went away. By the time grade 12 ended, I had given her a promissory ring, which she had accepted. We had begun making decisions about our careers. She wanted to be a dental technician, and I had decided on a general year of arts and sciences at university. We remained in our parents' homes in order to save money, and due to an unexpected offer by her parents, this was fine with us both. A favorite activity of ours was to drive out into the country away from city lights. We would park our car, throw an unzipped sleeping bag across the hood and windshield, and a couple pillows for our heads. We covered up with a light blanket, then snuggled up as we watched the sky, talking, wishing upon the falling stars, etc. before moving to the back seat. We had been sexually active since the summer before. This time we fell asleep and didn't wake up before morning. Our parents were up making breakfast when we arrived, so I prepared myself for a scene. Instead, Katie's mom calmly asked us to sit down and have breakfast. I still waited for the shoe to drop. They asked where we had been, and I thought that at 19 I was old enough to tell them the truth, so it was time to man up. They both smiled, and her dad told us that their main concern was our safety, so instead of using the back seat, I would be welcome to sleep with her in her bedroom. This was before cell phones, by the way, so parents did not know where their kids were and couldn't find out. Her mom told me that it had been clear for a long time that we loved one another and were inseparable, and her dad told me that he was proud that his daughter had found such a fine young man. Her sex was always fantastic. We spent hours discovering our bodies and how to pleasure one another. I was the king of the world. For brevity, I would speed things up, but I wish I could go on. The length I went to show her how much I loved her and the thousands of wonderful things we did as a couple might make it easier for readers to relate to the completeness of my destruction when it came. She finished her course and quickly got a job. We took an apartment together after my third year. I had made the decision, with her input, to go into teaching. I had the capability to do anything else, but teaching afforded us more time together. More time with her was something money could not buy. After my fourth year, I proposed, and we set a date for the early summer after I complicated. We stayed in our apartment for one more year, and in the year following, I had landed a job. We bought a house in which we planned to live forever. We planned on having children after I had been given a permanent contract. At 28, we began our family. During our son, David, I was so proud of Katie and David. I think I acted as if Katie was the first woman in the world to give birth. It was wonderful and terrifying. I had prepared for the birth, but the violence of it shocked me. I relied on the two mothers for advice, and the three women were constantly amused with my playing mother's hand. What is she feeling? What does she need? What should I do? When can we have relations again? The birth brought me even closer to Katie. I had often heard that once born, children become the number one in their parents' eyes, supplanting their partners. Not me. Katie was a miracle, a wonder. She had always been my best friend, lover, soulmate, etc. Now she had become my soul itself. There simply was no me without her. Now sometimes, in the deadness inside my heart, I can almost conjure these feelings. I felt even greater pride when Hannah arrived after David, 3 years later to be exact. These employers were very generous to their employees. Every second year, they would give the hygienists, technicians, receptionists, etc. a 5-day-long weekend. The girls would make all the plans, and the practice would pay all the costs. One year, once the kids were older, David, 10, and 7, I had made plans to take the kids somewhere special, instead of the usual trip to one of the other grandparents. Instead, we were going to a city far away with a famous mall that featured a huge water park, indoor amusements, submarine ride, and so on. It was very exciting for all three of us. Once it was time, I drove my love to the airport where she was to meet up with the others, and we sat off. I would just cut to the chase here. On the second day, the kids and I were wading toward the wave pool when we saw something that stopped my heart. Outside the park, but on their way there, were Katie and someone I didn't know, walking hand in hand. In this place, countless people from everywhere go there, and, as I stated up front, with her looks, anyone who had ever seen her would recognize her immediately. "There's Mommy," declared Hannah. The tears were already flowing when Davy asked, "Dad?" He wanted me to assure him, I guess. The cheating couple found a pair of reclining beach chairs, and before sitting down, exchanged a long, passionate kiss, hands massaging the other's butts. Davy asked me again, "Dad?" But I was just gasping and couldn't form sounds. As the cheaters separated and sat down, Hannah began running toward Katie, calling Mommy, Mommy. As she recognized Hannah, Katie was in full panic, skating the crowd until she finally saw us. I began walking toward them, and she buried her face into the bath towels she had brought. I stopped in front of the affair partner and asked Hannah to come to me. "So, a-hole, I want to introduce you to the children whose family you just destroyed. I hope their faces haunt you for the rest of your miserable life." They met my words with a crap-eating grin, long practiced, and went and sat a few chairs further away, without uttering a sound. I told the kids to stay with their mom and hightailed it to her room. I changed as quickly as I could, leaving most of my stuff and all the kids. At reception, I explained that Katie would eventually want to know where I was, and that it was okay to tell her I had left, and to let her into the room, to get the kids' things. I'm not proud of this, but I figured 2 kids might inject a little coitus and erupt us into their plans. Then I began a very long and lonely 8-hour drive home, punctuated by many stops along the way as my sobbing at times grew too intense for me to keep going. When I arrived at our house, I pulled the phone jack out of the wall. I sat down and wrote each of the kids a long letter which I placed onto their pillows. I took a hockey bag, stuffed it with random clothes and items I thought I'd need. I had more romantic plans for the bathtub, but I ran a lot of water into it and poured the better part of 2 gallons of bleach in it. Then, every wedding picture or photo of the two of us I could find, all the pre-children photo albums, and all the lingerie and other sexy things I had given her, wedding certificate too. Before I left, I laid out the house for the reception I had wanted to give her. The week before this, I had purchased 200 thick white candles of various heights and commissioned 2 of Katie's colleagues to get me the oils and lotions she might like. I laid out the candles beginning at the entrance like a little path leading to the bathroom. Candles crowded all the horizontal surfaces in the bathroom, and the bath oils and lotions were placed nearest to the tub. I had gotten 2 new large hotel-grade white bath towels that I placed on the toilet seat. On top of that was the lingerie and other sexy things I had brought for the night, except I cut them up. The kids were to stay with Grandpa and Grandma, and our neighbor and his wife were to light the candles after I phoned them from the airport. Our bedroom, too, was loaded with candles, and I folded over her side of the bed and tore off the petals of 24 roses to sprinkle onto the sheets. It was to be the homecoming of all time. I left my wedding ring on the kitchen table, scooped a few photos of the kids, and left forever. I was in no condition to see anyone, so I booked into a cheap motel to wait for Tuesday. Long week to remember. I did phone my principal and explained that he needed to find a sub because I would not be in the near term. Tuesday morning, I made an appointment with a door lawyer and gave him the terms. I would take out half the money in our checking or savings account, whichever was most, but relinquished claim to everything else. I asked for visiting rights during holiday periods. I would never see Katie face-to-face. All communication was through the lawyer, who was not allowed to disclose my whereabouts to anyone. I headed toward a part of the country where there was a housing boom to find some kind of basic job to pay the bills. I never even thought about teaching again. My lawyer did a beautiful job of keeping correspondence focused on business, and he never disclosed my whereabouts. He even controlled the exchange of children. I could go on, particularly how I handled things with the kids, my beloved in-laws, but I want to return to my first paragraph. Was the affair worth it? It destroyed me. Think of a light bulb with a burned-out element. My spirit, my love of life, of being me, burned away. Self-respect, confidence, all extinguished, never to return. Now, so many years later, I still cannot trust women. I cannot make myself vulnerable. Guys try to set me up, but I always refuse. My libido did not survive the affair anyway. I was largely in absence of my kids' lives. 2 weeks in summer are not much. Was that worth it? Just a mistake? I feel like I can't answer anything anymore. But for God's sake, girls, think about what you are doing before you enter into your little fling. Does your husband or boyfriend deserve this? The OP has some responses. I appreciate the interest in my post, regardless of it being supportive or condemnatory. As I wrote, though, it is an account of what I did, of what I was capable of at the time, and certainly not a guidebook on how to react. I have replayed that moment in my head countless times, and I still don't know if I could have done better. A better man might have, but not me. Mr. Wellman 81, for example, is a hard marker, but I accept his words. I don't think he understood my being completely broken. I didn't choose to cave in, but like the burned-out element of light bulb, I was no longer there. But no matter. I'm sorry that this has taken time, but depression has the upper hand with me now, and just getting up is a chore. I do want to address a couple more common comments. As people have taken the time to write, I feel they deserve the courtesy of a reply. Dealing with the kids was relatively easy. Once I realized that I would have to make a major concession, I had gotten Christmas, Easter, and 3 weeks in the summer. The kids, though, wanted to go to Grandma and Grandpa's house for Christmas and Easter, and I readily saw the benefit to them. So through my attorney, I traded those in exchange for another week in the summer. We did not fight over the kids. In summer, one of my sisters or my parents would bring them out, and I would get them into swimming lessons. As I only had 2-week holidays then, I am very grateful for the family support. Calling the kids on the weekend at my parents' was normal, but clearly not the same as being there. Once they got older and could drive, I left them aside for themselves what they wanted to do. Usually they came, unless the sport had gotten away. I was able to get David well-paying summer jobs, so he was happy to come out after grades 10, 11, and 12 for the whole summer. They came out on their own approximately every second Christmas. I didn't keep a ledger. Hannah and I eventually developed a strong bond because she wanted to understand my hurt and how it damaged me. I think it is pretty simple to sympathize with a wounded person, but I think she has grasped it and has forgiven me for disappearing. She focused on me, not the marriage, not the family, not changing things. There was no talk of mother until the kids were older. I will write one more post, but I am going to have to wean myself off the forum. I had hoped that this might make me feel better, and at first it did feel good just to throw the story out to the winds. Recently, though, I have read some stories that have deeply moved me, and I don't need help being sad. One about a man whose wife had cheated and whose 3 daughters hid the affair from him. Several have asked. I am 65 now and was 38 at the time. Let's see some relevant comments. Dual Jobs says, "Wow, dude, that is the worst story I've heard in the last 6 months of following this sub. I want to say you should have beat the crap out of that guy, but you were a complete wreck emotionally and blindsided. How did you get back in contact with your kids even though very infrequently? Wellman81 says, "Oh man, my heart breaks for what you went through. I will give you commendations for not staying with your ex-wife and for not doing the pick-me dance. When you say you lost your self-respect on D-Day, I'd have to say you maintained it by not being one of those worthless simps who begged for a heartless cheater to stay. I'm quite certain if you stuck around, Katie would have come groveling and begging for your forgiveness, saying she's sorry, that the affair partner meant nothing, but that she'd never cheat again and all that other crap. F that. Who knows to you for getting rid of such a vile human being from your life. However, I will say that your lowest moment was alienating yourself from your children who needed you during the worst time of their lives. You were a coward in the sense of more or less abandoning your children, and now you're going to have to live with the fact that you missed them growing up and, most of all, their lifelong anger and resentment towards you for it. You could have easily been the best co-parenting dad for them and never missed a thing in their lives. But instead, you ran away with your tail tucked between your legs. That's not something I could live with, but if you can, then I guess that's your cross to bear. So here you are, a shell of a man tainted of life because of what? A cheating floozy? You are choosing to be miserable and letting the past dictate your future. You created this traumatic prison in your own instead of rising from the ashes and showing your ex-wife what a real man is made of. I totally get not wanting to date, much less to get remarried. But dude, please get some professional help and stop allowing these demons to run your life. But you continually living in misery and heartache. Your ex-wife and the piece of crap she was with already won. Copper Coil says, I was with you until you abandoned your children in a strange place with a cheating wife and a stranger. Also, you could go home and set up a guilt trip revenge thing? Am I supposed to have sympathy for someone who walked out of his children's lives? Except for what? Twice a year on a weekend for holidays? She's a piece of crap for destroying your marriage by cheating, but you're a piece of crap too. Your children deserve better from both of you.